John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning and welcome to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Picks Show. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, and senior contributor to GodzillaWins.com, Nate Perry, also with us today. Show regular at this point, weekly contributor, Mitch Rogers, who is covering right now the Big 12 college basketball, a little bit of the Penguins. He's hyped for March Madness. We're all hyped for March Madness, and we're going to talk a lot about that on the show. But for the first hour, we're going to spend the entire first hour talking about the State of the Union. Joe Biden's. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to do a whole bunch of different topics here. We'll talk a little live golf, little March Madness. Russell Wilson. I think we might try to work in the Temple basketball points shaving scandal, which I might chuck the first segment that I had, and we'll just talk about the point shaving stuff because that's so germane to our subject matter here at Godzilla. Let's do a little hockey talk at the end. Then that whole second hour, don't change the dial at 9 Eastern because we are covering college basketball. We're gearing up for March Madness, and in order to do that, we got your picks for. We're going to do a whole hour of college basketball picks. I know John was sending us some late night picks last night. I was in bed by 7:30, so I wasn't able to respond, but I'm up and at 'em now. So here we go. Sometimes teaching, it really can kick you down on Friday. You just end up in bed. But listen, Godzilla Wins and all its subsidiaries are for entertainment purposes only. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER, 1-800-426-2537 in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Louisiana, Maryland, Michigan, Nebraska, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 800-327-5050. Visit gamblinghelpline-ma.org. In Massachusetts, call 877-GHOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-3699. In New York, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP. In Arizona, 1-800-522-4700. In Kansas, New Hampshire, 888-79-7777. Or visit ccpg.org. In Connecticut, 100-BETS-OFF in Iowa, or visit opgr.org in Oregon. Okay, so why don't we were going to do what I would consider to be a time-honored tradition in sports radio, which is talking about movies and film. That's just something that I think sports radio is always kind of their tertiary interest is always in film. But then this Temple stuff came up, so I just kind of want to start there because it is so, like I said, germane to what we do at Godzilla Wins in the show. And I guess I'll set it up, and I may have Nate help me because he's a little bit better at explaining some of the more complicated things that happen in the sports gambling world. But basically what happened was Temple was playing UAB, and the spread was like -2.5. This is college basketball. Spread's like UAB -2.5. And the line moved to like -8 very quickly, which in college basketball is nearly unheard of. I mean, that can happen in the NFL or something, or college football. It doesn't usually happen quickly, but it can happen. For college basketball, for a line to move like that is really peculiar. And Temple ended up losing by like 30. So UAB covered the spread pretty handily. And some people, I guess, on Twitter, and then there's some journalists who are claiming, or at least raising questions about the possibility of a points shaving scandal here at Temple. So Nate, I just kind of want to bring you in to this conversation to give us a little bit of context and maybe explain.
I mean, that can happen in the
why
NFL.
this is a problem.
Yeah, so it's a problem, and when these point shaving things happen, it's typically the gamblers that know first. I mean, the biggest red flag when they're looking at these things is that giant line move you talked about. UAB opens as a 1.5 point favorite at one casino. A few hours later, they're an 8 point favorite. Like 6.5 point spreads are just unheard of in college basketball. Basically, the only way that that's happening in like the modern era is basically if the fix is in. There aren't injuries that the public isn't going to know about, that the sports books aren't going to know about, to where these totals or where these lines are just going to be going crazy like that. So it's usually that there's a huge influx of money on a team, and usually that's coming in a way that's sort of disorganized, like it is here. Typically, if syndicates are making big bets on games, they'll tend to spread them out through a whole network of casinos, through a whole network of accounts, using a whole network of confederates. In this particular instance, for this UAB game versus Temple, where Temple was expecting a point shaving, potentially, there's like a real concern that it's just one guy just loading up at one casino, and that's how the line moves that much, because they're basically taking a maximum bet, call it 10 or 15K for a weekday game like this probably, and they're just taking it 13 times in a row, and each time the casino moves at half a point, and each time the guy hits it for the max again. So it's not really even terribly organized. It's not terribly clever. But that's what appears to be happening on the surface, versus, sort of a more organized syndicate that potentially isn't fixing games, but they have sort of a network to be able to bet it without drawing this sort of like crazy attention like this one guy did in one casino.
And I tell you what, timing is everything with this. Billy Walters, the most renowned gambler of all time, it was just on Rogan's show. I'm listening to his audiobook right now. He just talked about last week the Arizona State point shaving scheme, which they actually were a little bit better than this guy, and they got caught right away because the gamblers noticed it right away. Billy put money on it, lost his ass off on one bet. The next one he held off, and they went back for a third time. He alerted all the integrity watchdog, and they flagged him, and they busted those guys right away. And he said the people that do that are just idiots. But he literally has just brought that to the forefront of the millions of Joe Rogan listeners, and all these people are all looking at it, and this guy does the scheme that same week. It's the dumbest thing I could ever think of.
Yeah, so Nate, just explain before we get that in there, what's the culpability of Temple basketball? Like, for listeners who are just struggling to follow along with all of the moving parts in a story like this, does this mean that Temple is somehow colluding, or is this more just gamblers trying to move the line because they feel like it's priced wrong?
There's probably some. I mean, the worry is always that there's collusion. I mean, could it have just been one guy with like 250 grand to burn on UAB? Could have been. And he just wanted to take it slow and just bet it. He had no idea what he was doing, and he just wanted to get as much money as he could on it before the line got totally out of control at 8. I mean, that's possible. It's not likely. I mean, there's probably someone that he's working with that has some sort of information. I mean, and that's where, U.S. Integrity and the NCAA will probably go back and look at the film. Typically, it's fairly evident if someone's doing something sort of uncharacteristic, especially late in a game. Although this one was a blowout, so it was never really in question. But there will be things that they look for on the film, players in particular that they'll probably want to interview if they notice something weird. But, I mean, ultimately, it's pretty hard to prove.
Now, Dad, I want to bring you in here because you have an interesting perspective in this. One, you have a long memory for this type of stuff. You've been around sports gambling for probably, I don't know, your entire life. I mean, 65 years, basically. And not only that, you've also been in the horse racing world for a very long time, which is back in the day and probably still now the worst sport when it comes to integrity. In so many different ways. So I just want to kind of get your perspective on this. If you're looking at this just laughing, being like, oh my God, this happens every day, and every once in a while they catch it, or if this is a big deal for Temple basketball.
Well, I tell you what, it's a great question. I have been around gambling my entire life. As you know, your grandfather gambled with bookmakers forever, and there wasn't a day that went by that he wasn't. He bet baseball, he bet basketball, he bet football, he bet college football, he bet college basketball. You name it, he bet it. And back in those days, you'd call bookmakers up, and and back when I gambled before before DraftKings and FanDuel, things like you do online. I mean, I had a bookmaker in Atlanta, and when I won or lost money, you'd meet him at this, you'd meet him at the 7-Eleven, and you'd exchange like a newspaper with the money in it, one way or the other. I mean, and that was in the, that was in the 90s, right? Early 2000s. So none of this has changed. But, the real thing here is if you look at two things. Number one, I love the integrity networks that basically flag these things. And some of them are going to be false flags, but I love the fact that they're flagging them because it's the one thing that's going to keep the game more honest, especially at the collegiate level. So that's number one. As far as Temple is concerned, I can't see anything here. I mean, I didn't watch the whole tape of the game, but you kind of look at the matchups. I mean, UAB was a pretty good bet at -1.5 at the beginning based on some of the matchups. But this happened to Temple earlier in the season. They played Memphis, and I think the line opened at 3 or something, or 4, and it went up to 10.5. And Memphis didn't cover; they won by 8. So if the Temple players were shaving, or if somebody big was shaving, well, they didn't win that bet. So somebody lost a lot of money on that. It's very possible. Look, there's always wise guys, right? In everything you do, and like we bet online, and we're betting $50 or $75, right? Bet $1,000 on to Astros to win this World Series at 8-1 or something. But we're not up there betting, $15, $20, $30,000 a game like these wise guys do. So I'm not sure that they can. You're going to see anything to hear that Temple did, but anything can generate this, right? They hear that there's a flu going around, that there's a virus going around, that the plane got in late, right? Like, for instance, you got and I'll just give you a personal example because I was here. You got the first BYU game against West Virginia on Thursday. BYU has to play Thursday, Friday, Saturday because they don't play on the weekends, right? So they play at Nevada, Las Vegas on Tuesday. Well, we heard that plane. I mean, you leave Tuesday night. I mean, you're flying all night. You're not getting in until the morning. Then you got to go to Pittsburgh and drive all the way to Morgantown, which is an hour. Then you're playing at 3:00 in the afternoon. So if somebody figured that out, it's like, okay, well, these kids don't get any sleep. This is probably not going to win that game. WV beating with their best pitcher 10-4. So you could get something like that, plane delay, sickness, and somebody gets inside info on it, so they lay it down. But the way it was done, Nate and Mitch, it certainly didn't look like somebody was trying to hide a point shaving thing, because a guy just went to the casino and made a series of revolving bets. So it didn't look like the guy in the Cincinnati ballpark talking to the Alabama coach on the cell phone who says, my number one starter's not going, he's hurt. And then you lay it on the other team, and you're at the ballpark on the cell phone with him. I mean, that's pretty obvious. This, I think, is the guy just thought, for whatever reason, UAB was a good bet, and he won the bet.
And I think that it's important to note here too is that just sort of like to kind of clarify, like when we're talking about wise guys, we're talking about sort of big organized groups of professional bettors. And typically they don't move lines quite like this. They'll move them sort of simultaneously across 7 different sports books, maybe half a point or a point. They don't move it at one sports book 6 points. There's no value in that. Right. So this is at the very least, it's a guy that nobody really knows in Vegas. And the giant sports betting community in Vegas is big, but it's not that big. Most of these casinos, if they're taking max bets from somebody, kind of want to have an idea of who it is they're taking it from. So there's a lot more red flags that are sort of like not in this article, which is like probably that the casino also was pretty suspicious of it, because they don't know who this guy is and he's making a bunch of weird bets. And if it's the first time they've seen him, they're probably going to be suspicious.
You cannot go to Vegas and play craps and make a ton of weird bets and not draw the attention of at least 2 pit bosses. The idea that you could go like the idea
hit a casino 10 times for the max on a weekday basketball game.
Yeah, like just at the cage or whatever, being like, here's another 15 grand on UAB as the line keeps moving. And I mean, like, so absolutely, if and did they say what casino
They didn't name the casino.
So yeah, so we don't know that, but whatever the casino is that was taking these bets where the line moved, you have to understand now that they know who that guy is, and there may have also been a conversation of like, you can't do that anymore, bud. Like you're not, your money's not really welcome here or whatever, because it's a weird way to do things. And Mitch, to get back to Billy Walters, I think one thing that he talked about with the ASU stuff, and I know Nate has mentioned this to me this week as well, because Nate was also really interested in that conversation with Joe Rogan and the book as well, which we should all probably read that book and just talk about it for like an hour on the show one day.
Really interesting. I'm halfway in. It's a 10-hour audiobook.
Yeah.
It's a long one.
But one of the things that he mentioned, I think, when talking about the Arizona State stuff from years ago was that these guys are just not they're not smart criminals. So it's just obvious to see in a game when they're shaving. It's different, like Mitch and Dad, when it's like horse racing, like that's different, right? You ease up on the horse, you lose by a nose. It's hard to make it look in college basketball like you're trying and then also getting blown out. Like that's not an easy thing to do. So that's why they go back and watch the tape, Mitch.
And that's why in this instance, whoever did this is idiotic if it's his goal to be a sports gambler. Because, that's what, reading the book and the interview with Walters, you do it subtly to move it a half point, maybe a point. In college basketball, you never see anything over 2 points. And it's so you can live to bet another day. But now this guy, just like you all mentioned, is flagged. I mean, he's not going to be able to just run around and he's not going to be smart enough to get proxies and beards and do some stuff. So you wonder what the motivation was. It was just like a one-time, try to make some money and run. Because you would think the days of actually, paying off players and stuff. I mean, that's not what's happening. He's getting just some inside tips, or maybe knows the strength coach or something crazy. But yeah, the motivation is what is intriguing, because that's going to be a one-time thing no matter if you get away with it.
Yeah, and there are some eye-popping stats that they'll look at. I mean, they get out-rebounded 41-19 against UAB. It's their worst rebounding margin since 2019. Stuff like that, that'll get attention from people. There was another game where some people online were saying that it looked funny, and the guards were reportedly just throwing passes out of bounds. There were a lot of passes that just didn't look like they were intended for anybody. So, I mean, the internet community, the Twitter sleuths are definitely on it. And if you dig deep enough, there's some weird stuff that's probably worth people going back and looking at for sure.
And Temple's not Alabama, a bigger school.
Right, they're not good. But so that's the other problem.
Yeah, so it's hard to know. Like in college basketball, it's weird. I mean, I mentioned this to Nate last night. I was at some Mexican restaurant. I looked up at the LSU Auburn women's college basketball game. LSU is one of the best women's college teams in the country, but Auburn's ranked 6 or 7, and the score was 71-35. I mean, it was like a 35-point blowout. And Auburn supposedly is supposed to be good. I'm sure they are. LSU is probably one of the top, 2 or 3 teams in the country. So I understand the blowout, but that's just what happens in college. It's not the NBA, I mean, sometimes in college basketball, you just get wiped off the floor because it's kids. And then because what I think is well, how could kids even be motivated by some sort of points shaving scheme with this NIL money? They all make money now with NIL deals. So I can't imagine that a star guard at Temple would be tempted to basically put everything in jeopardy for some sort of point shaving thing. But the money, I mean, who knows? I mean, Temple's not Alabama, so maybe there's just not a lot of NIL money there. But we don't want to speculate on
money. And you have a team that's going nowhere.
Yeah. But we don't want to speculate too much on their involvement. We don't know. We'll follow the story pretty closely.
And you're in Jersey.
Yeah.
Or Philly or wherever. You're close. You're close.
The Northeast, the Atlantic coast, where all that stuff tends to happen. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely.
I'm kind of with you guys, because you also got to look now at this NIL money. I mean, it's an enormous amount of money that's flown to these players, and it's only going to get bigger. And a lot of it is based on performance, right? Because if the team wants to keep you, then sponsors want you, and all of these colleges now have these cooperatives where they all get, where all the donors and the alumni and advertise. I mean, that's the other thing. Just not in the blue chip movie era, right? You'll remember that and things like that. it was all about alumni and big donors. The guy in Miami. Now it's about corporate sponsors, right? So they're pouring money into this NIL thing in order to get the players, as a co-branding opportunity with their various companies. That's what's driving this money. And so, to jeopardize that for, I don't know, how much could you win? $5,000 or $10,000, right? I mean, you got to spread it around. I really don't see it. Horses are different. I mean, back before there were casinos, in order to make money, you had to make it at the windows. I mean, the purse is simply for overnights, which means, non-stake races. I was in the business a long time and I did pretty well at it, but you just couldn't make enough money. The purses weren't big enough. And so you either had to race your horses down and get a check almost every time out. But a lot of times, you just, you'd have a horse back and maybe it's the second start, third start back, and you got the 7-hole and, you're just not going to do anything with them. People are still betting them. I'm just not going to try to win. It's almost like a primer. So if you're 7-1 and you bet $100 to win, you are not going to win that race, right? Because I'm not trying. Not that I'm betting the other horse. It doesn't work for me that day. And then, week after that, I'm in. I draw the 3-hole. Now I'm 5-1, and I know I got horse. And then in those days there was no what was it, online betting. So I used to have my father stand at the $50 window, bet $2,000 at the end, so it didn't show on the odds, and the guy would just keep hitting the button. I mean, that's the way you did it. Right? You just hit the button.
Like you just see, just explaining that, like that doesn't sound like a lot of integrity goes into that. I mean, I understand.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I mean, it's
and he would stand there, and they would have a big guy behind him. He had this fat friend of his that would stand behind him, so nobody else could get in because there was only upstairs one $50 window, and you couldn't bet it early because then the odds would show on the board, and then people would jump on it. Because if you go from 10-1 or 8-1, and all of a sudden you're 4, well, everybody jumps on it. So you wait until the final minute. And then you just press a button with a fat guy standing behind you. So nobody else can get in. I mean, this is the way it worked back then. And, is it rigged? Well, I mean, that week I was trying to win. The week before, it didn't work for us. Not like we stiffed them, but we stiffed them not because we wanted to lose. You just didn't. I needed another primer, or I didn't like the front runner, or I didn't want to battle for the lead. Who knows?
All the skinny guys were thrown out.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, this would have been the 1970s. So horse racing is a small community now. In the 1970s in Jersey, it was probably you and like 22 other people. So, I mean, it's a little bit, especially because you race standard breds, which is
right
with the chariot sort of get up in behind the horse, not
the sulky, but yeah.
Yeah. So that's the chariot. Yeah, that's what I always think. I mean, it looks like a chariot. I know, but that's what it looks like. Like it looks like a chariot. It's just I always think the Roman stuff.
Gladiator.
Yeah, like you're behind there. But I mean, so even that's a small community. But what you just explained didn't exactly seem totally above board. But I do understand. I mean, like they're animals, so you can't walk up to a horse and be like, "Hey, I know you're not feeling well." But like you got to win one for the coach here, like and motivate. I mean, it's a horse, right? Like if it's not ready.
What if he was like,
yeah, like it's just a horse, right? I mean, so it's there's a lot of gray area in horse racing, and we'll get into that. I love talking about that stuff during the Derby because it's always kind of the politics of horse racing is weird. The integrity of the sport is weird. The way that they're trying to clean up the way that they treat the horses is an interesting topic as well. So once we get through that, we'll do a couple segments on horse racing right around the Kentucky Derby and the Triple Crown and everything. That's a big thing that we do on the show, and it's a lot of fun because we are probably, I think, the only show on the air, sports gambling wise, that has a former horse, horse trainer. That's not a show that's just about horse racing. Where I mean, those guys have been in the business for their entire life. But to have a show like ours where it's a pretty broad spectrum. I think we're probably the only show that has a person who actually lived that lifestyle. And it's a weird one. I mean, it's if you like sports gambling, there's nothing more interesting than hearing about horse racing, because it's probably the most. It's just the two sports are tied together so much in that. Like, there is no gambling without horse
There's
racing.
no horse racing without gambling.
Yeah,
not at all. Yeah, and when you live in those communities, I live in Fauquier County near Middleburg, like Robert Duvall. We have Charlestown Racetrack up at West Virginia. So, like, our county is known as horse country around here, and we have a race called Gold Cup, which has become a lot more popular now. But it is synonymous with gambling. And you'd be like 8 or 9 years old in the pits, and there's just little sheets going around for dollar bets for the kids, and everyone's doing major bets. And this is the first time you really got to see, like, dressed up, business people just taking bets, and and it's crazy. But the world is so crazy and into it, and when you meet the trainers and stuff like that, so I'm excited. I'm excited for that as well. But
yeah, we'll definitely
it's synonymous. And I want to learn how to always lose, so I'd like to get some tips from you guys on how to win some of these things.
Well, and we'll talk about that, because Nate has had success in the past. Now, I don't have any success gambling with the horses. Nate and Dad are a little bit better, but Nate can get on a heater. So we'll talk about some of those stories when we get there. We're going to talk a little bit about our approach to gambling, March Madness, how to pick those games in a minute. But Dad, before we do that, I want you to talk a little bit about Healthy Cell. I know you're up so early every day. You weren't on the show last week, and we were singing Healthy Cell's praises, both their joint health and mobility, but then also their REM sleep, which is such an amazing product. So tell us, I know you take REM sleep every night. Tell us how this product has affected your life.
I got REM sleep right here. I mean, I never travel without it. Came up here for the weekend to see Joe's team play. Brought him another box of it home for dinner last night. The key with this is you're going to get a great night's sleep. Last night I got eight and a half hours, so like today I'm good to go. But the night before, obviously I had to stay up to watch the State of the Union address. So I was very, very late, and then I guess that Republican that imbecilic Republican response helping me to sleep immediately. But what I should have just done with the State of the Union is simply downloaded the audio book of Karl Marx, and I could have had the same thing. But this REM sleep is fantastic, because this thing, I take this 15 minutes before you go to bed, and it puts you in the deepest of sleep. So the other night I only got 5 hours, because that's stupid State of the Union thing I had to endure with him screaming up there. But the 5 hours I got was awesome, because I was in the deepest of sleeps. Now, you can't do 5 hours every night, but this thing is really going to change your life. And I got my whole family on it. Jack's on it. Joe's on it. Claire's on it. Half the baseball team's on it. Sleep is regenerative. It is not to be, especially as you get older, it is not to be underestimated. So just go to healthycell.com, healthycell.com. So this is my favorite thing they have. There's a bunch of other things I take. Joint mobility. I just got 2 boxes of those. But and order your REM sleep. Promo code Godzilla, you're going to get 20% off. And it's going to change your life immediately. It's not 2 weeks or a month. The same day. The night you take it, you're going to feel better when you get up. You're going to jump out of bed, fresh as a daisy, like me every day. I'm going to be 66 in a couple of days. I feel like I'm 40. That's because of REM sleep. Let's go to healthycell.com/Godzilla, promo code Godzilla.
Dad, if you don't have to download the audiobooks. If you need any Karl Marx, I'll ship it right to you. It's got my marginalia for you. We can do a reading group. You don't have to do the audiobook. We can meet every week on Zoom and talk about it. So just whenever you're ready to start that journey, I'm here for you. If it's an intellectual exercise or a political exercise, either one, we all come back to the ideology of political economy at some point. So just tell me when you're ready, and we can do that. Okay.
First I have to replay Alabama Senator Katie Britt in her kitchen. I have no idea what the hell she said. So I have to do that first.
Was that the Republican response?
Try to figure out if you could call it a response. I mean, it was like I went to the bathroom and came back, and I'm like, oh, honey, you changed your channel to like one of the soap opera reruns, right? Those actors are like, oh. That was it. No, she was babbling about, and then she started to cry or something. Aunt said I couldn't take it. It was like It's got to be the stupidest Republican response in the history of Republican response. And they said, "Oh, we're going to get suburban women." What?
No,
and then the final thing I'm going to say, and then we got to get off this. You're a U.S. senator. Why is your name Katie? I mean, like, do we call U.S. senators like Johnny or Timmy or? It's like, change your name to Kate. You're a United States senator. Hi, this is Katie Britt. Here's my kitchen. And I tell you the other thing. Does anybody have a kitchen like that? Like, there was not a spot on. There was not a glass around. Like, that's not how any kitchen looks. Anyway, I'm off that. That thing is. I mean,
hey, the Karens are off the hook. It's all about Katie.
Yeah. The one I remember is Marco Rubio or whatever, when he couldn't stop drinking water. That's
Bobby Jindal.
That was
Jindal. Yeah, that was Jindal. Yeah.
Whoever it was who just he
ended his career.
And I'll tell you this: I remember listening to that and watching it and thinking, this guy needs to chill with the water. But then the first time I ever did the radio like this, not like on the phone, but like just a radio, or Dad, like if I like an interview, you know, and I'm sure your mouth gets so dry immediately because you're so nervous. And then the minute, you know, when you do it a bunch, you stop getting nervous. But the first a couple times you do it, it's so nerve-wracking and your mouth is so dry. So I kind of understand where that came from, having done this a couple times. But when you watch it, you're just like, man, this guy is just bathing in this bottle of water. Like, chill out.
And what's great is they were trying to prop him up as like the Republican Barack Obama, who's the most eloquent speaker in history, and then he comes out and he's just sipping water.
It destroyed his career. The guy never recovered from that. And I said on the radio Friday, I'm like, actually now after this Katie Britt rendition, he should turn around and run for like U.S. Senate in Louisiana because all is forgiven. Because she was so bad, you'll never remember him drinking the water. It was a joke.
I don't care what you think about him, but that moment's meant for Vivek, man. He would crush that moment. Like
Vivek should have given the response, or Trump's response. He had like a 3.5 minute video that we played was a 10. I mean, that thing was just ridiculous. It's just pandering. It's like, let's find some 40. Oh, I'm 42 years old. I got 3 kids. And then I get like the names were weird, like Moonshine and Blue Jay or something. I couldn't take it.
Yeah. We're putting Nate to sleep here. He's starting to yawn. So we'll move on to some sports topics here instead of the State of the Union, as I guess we all were really interested in that. It was kind of a interesting moment for the country. I haven't watched the State of the Union in a long time, but this one is, I think, important for a lot of reasons. Nate, let's talk a little March Madness here. What I want to do for our listeners, which a lot of our audience are like us, you know, they're kind of casual sports players. You know, maybe they have a DraftKings account. Maybe they've played March Madness a little bit. Maybe they haven't. March Madness can get overwhelming quickly, right? Like, it can be hard to just college basketball on a Saturday is overwhelming, but March Madness can be kind of overwhelming, and you don't want to lose your shirt on Thursday and ruin your fun for the rest of the tournament. So just tell us, Nate, a little bit about, you know, you do this every year, some of your approaches, some of your strategies, some of the sort of best practices for picking games and playing in a state where that's legal, March Madness, as far as money is concerned.
Yeah. So, and we'll obviously talk more about this. We're going to do a special show before the tournament where, you know, you'll get some sort of like concrete examples of putting this methodology into work. But there's definitely some things that I look at. I mean, the first thing, if you're making outright bets, you know, just looking for the tournament winner, you know, you just want to just fire up your account and you're like, I just want to bet on somebody to win right now. You're not worried about the matchups. You're not worried about the bracket yet. By the way that I look at it, there's basically 11 teams that can win out of the 68 that'll be in the field. These 11 are almost certainly going to be in. There's basically no universe in which they don't just get an at-large bid if they don't automatically qualify. And I got to these teams basically using the most simple of formulas, which is, if you go to kenpom.com, he's been keeping metrics since 2002. Since 2002.
You go to what name?
Ken Pomeroy is his name. KENPOM.com. POM.com.
Thank you.
He's got a whole list of sort of metrics and rankings, and it's basically what almost anyone who's like kind of a little bit serious uses. Nobody really looks at the AP. It's basically Sagarin and Ken Palm are the best sort of predictive metrics just on a baseline level for college basketball. You look at that, and since 2002, there have been however many winners, 23? Because we didn't play in 2020 or 21. However many winners there are, all of them have finished either in the top 40 in adjusted offense and in the top 25 in adjusted defense. So if you're just going through this list, you can just eliminate basically almost all of the teams and you're left with 11. You're left with Houston, Tennessee, Auburn, UNC, Kansas, UConn, Arizona, Marquette, Purdue, Duke, and Creighton are basically the teams that can win. Notable outliers that don't fit into this criteria of past winners from Pomeroy's rankings are Alabama. They have number 1 adjusted offense. They're 107th in adjusted defense. Typically, teams with these big of defensive deficiencies typically struggle in the tournament. They can struggle to close out games. They can struggle to get stops. So Alabama would be like a red flag team that I wouldn't love. Illinois is another one. Elite offensively, 4th offensive, 103 in adjusted defense. That's going to be tough for them to overcome. It's been tough for them to overcome in Big Ten play at times. So there's a lot of teams like that. Iowa State is the opposite. Elite defensively, but probably not enough offense to be able to get the job done at 69th in adjusted offense. So there are some notable outliers that are top-ranked teams that probably don't have a chance based on this formula of what we've seen from winners in the past. So that's just sort of like baseline what I look at in terms of betting futures, right? As they sort of have to meet this criteria of top 40 adjusted offense, top 25 adjusted defense. From there, when you're looking at the bracket and it's more matchup specific, especially when you're looking at lower seeds upsetting higher seeds, what you really want from a lower seed, and this is, pretty much true every year, is you want teams that increase the variance in a game. How do you increase the variance in the game? You basically increase the variance in a game through a few different ways. You can do it through pace. You either play at a pace that's uncomfortably fast for opponents, or you play at a pace that's uncomfortably slow. Typically in the tournament, in a one-and-done scenario, teams that play incredibly slow are more disruptive in the tournament. They're typically more comfortable in end-of-game situations. They tend to be better at sort of controlling the pace. They're better at slowing the game down than a team that wants to run can, speed it up. It's easier for them to do that.
San Diego State last year would be a good example.
San Diego State last year, Virginia in years past. A lot of teams like that. Houston this year plays incredibly slow. There's a whole bunch of Baylor was not the swiftest team in 2021. There are a lot of teams that sort of fit this mold. And they can be elite or they can be bad, like sort of like middle of the road, like San Diego State was. You can do it through really gambling for turnovers and offensive rebounds. VCU, when they went on that run, and they just pressed everybody. They went for every steal. They went for every weird rebound. They crashed the glass like crazy. That can get you some upset wins. And then the last thing is teams that shoot a lot of threes. Vermont, when they had the upset, UMBC, when they had the upset and they made like 1 billion threes against Purdue. Fairleigh Dickinson. Lob City, when Florida Gulf Coast went deep a few years back, they just shot like 1 zillion threes. If you're a mediocre team that can just put up a ton of threes, then you can upset somebody because you just catch your heater. So
FAU, they're another one. FAU, they're another one.
Yeah. So there are a ton of teams that have done that, and those are basically the 3 biggest things. So you don't want a team that's just mediocre at sort of like everything. Like if you're looking at a mid-major, you don't want one that plays at basically the same pace as everyone else and basically tries to do the same thing as everyone else in terms of like, percentage, usage rate, stuff like that. They shoot about the same.
So based on that, is there a team or I think, and by the way, excellent analysis. I've written it all down. Is there a team that might fit that early on that you might take a look at in the first or second round?
I mean, in terms of like, could they be disruptive enough to throw somebody off their game? Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think New Mexico, if they get in the tournament, could be weird enough that they could upset some teams. They play like basically a 4-guard lineup. They shoot a lot of threes. They play at a really fast tempo. They're like 5th, which is sort of unheard of for a team that's even a little bit good. Usually teams that play like in the top 10 tempos are among the worst teams in college basketball. It's like McNeese and places like that where they're just trying to score like 100 points as quickly as possible, and they don't care if their opponent scores 120. So there are teams like that. I typically lean towards defense being the sort of bedrock, sort of thing. San Diego State, again, is a great, defensive team. They play really slow. I think they'll be good again. Teams like that. I think the Mountain West will have a few. That's the one that I'm most familiar with because that's the most games I've watched.
I mean, one of the teams that used to frustrate because I used to be all Big East and hate them was Syracuse. Even if Syracuse snuck in a play-in game, they still make a run because especially if they win on that Thursday or Friday, and then you got to face them with only a day of prep going into that weekend game and facing a zone defense. If you've never seen it before, I mean, it's crazy. West Virginia with that press Virginia defense too, when they made their run to the Elite Eight, it's because one day to prepare for that. But it's hard for teams to make not a gimmicky offense, but one that's just going to, be disruptive in when they get in the tournament. But when it gets to the weekend, Nate, how's the betting after that first game into the weekend? Do you look at like if they've seen each other before, or if they've never played, or how tired they were? That's where I feel like I feel like I have an advantage when I'm betting is those game 2s of the weekend.
I mean, I think that there are some times where it just looks like they're kind of like, legs are going out. Like we had that. I mean, this was years ago now. Syracuse played like that 6 OT game, and both those teams were basically trash at the end of like the Big East tournament. I think they were still in the Big East then. They were both just toast when they got there. They had no legs. So, you see stuff like that sometimes, but like that's stuff that everyone kind of knows. You look at them and you think like these guys don't have legs. Like everyone watched that game. I think that it's still like just sort of matchups. You look at what a team did well in the first round, and you just look at how that compares to what the other team did. If a team struggled to rebound and the other team had a great rebounding game, then they're going to be in trouble. Stuff like that I think is still there, and I think that it's in such a small sample size. We talk so much about regression and variance in gambling, and so much of that is built around this sort of worldview of we have 30-ish regular season games, and then we have a couple postseason games, and eventually things will come to the mean. In a college basketball tournament setting, like ride a hot team, like they're gonna stay, like they could probably stay hot. Like you're not worried about them cooling off like in a month from the 3-point line. Like if they shot well on Thursday, like they're probably going to shoot well again. They're in the same gym, and they're probably going to shoot it well again, like on Saturday. Like there's no reason to be like, oh, they'll probably regress to the mean after having like a hot game on Thursday. Like I think it's easier to ride.
I think that's good analysis. Staying with a hot team, and if you can catch one of these hot teams early in the tournament, you can make a lot of money with that.
And I think
right?
that we've seen it since they started doing these like sort of like extra play-in games. There's always an 11 or 12 seed that has to play a play-in game, and it's like everyone else is starting a 100-yard dash from a static start, and it's that team that plays on Tuesday or whatever that gets into the tournament, and it's like they come in with a flying start, and the line goes, and they're already running, and it seems like they already have.
Do you like that? Do you like that format, guys? Do you like the play-in games? Like, so you're going from 64 to what is 68. It like 72, right? Because you got 8 teams.
68, right?
Yeah.
I like it. I like it
because you got.
I like it only because it's keeping the dogs away from trying to expand it to that ridiculous 100 games or whatever they want to do it. So at least it kind of keeps them at bay, and it satisfies the urge to bring some other teams into there. But I don't think it's any worse than it was before.
More college basketballs. I'm for that. I mean, like whatever we can, having high stakes games on a Tuesday, I'm for that. College. This is the best sport. I mean, this for 3 weeks, this is the best spectator sport. So giving me 2 or 3 extra games, they're the only other sort of high leverage. I mean, because the Super Bowl is the Super Bowl, like. It's overwhelming sometimes, but it's not.
But it's one game.
Like the World Series, right? Like as far as just or just the kind of Major League Baseball playoffs. Like that's an exciting time. If you like baseball at all, it's really exciting to watch. It's exciting to go to those games. College basketball is about the only other thing that I think that mirrors that type of excitement. because it's the only other sport where really there isn't regression to the mean in the same way. Like a baseball team can also get hot and win the whole thing. That's the only other sport that happens. That doesn't happen in the NFL unless you're like the Giants, like once or twice. It doesn't happen in college football. It never happens in college football. It's not going to happen with the playoff either. And, you know, it doesn't happen in the NBA because there are the good teams are the good teams and they play so many games that you get the regression. But in college basketball, you can get that you can get that hot team and ride them, 5 or 6 games, and that can be a lot of fun. As far as the variance goes, I just want to throw in a couple teams that might be disruptive. New Mexico, I think Nate is on that, and everybody should be on New Mexico if they get in, which I think they will. Some other teams with some good defensive numbers that might be disruptive early on. Providence, if they get in as well, they could be really good. Mississippi State plays excellent defense as well, and plays in the SEC, which is a tough conference. I think Mississippi State can be kind of disruptive. And I went to Ole Miss, so I'm not cheering for Starkville ever. But as far as variance goes, I think that those teams could be really interesting. I'm really interested in Providence as well. I think they could be disruptive. They got to get in, but if they do, I think they can be disruptive. And those are some teams that might be playing on Tuesday that have that kind of head start. Just good adjust.
Don't you guys feel?
Yeah.
Don't you guys feel that this is the most wide open college basketball coming tournament you've ever seen? I mean, normally we've got 1 or 2 teams that are somewhat dominant that somebody's got to knock them off. I mean, you look at this thing is wide open. Like, would anybody be shocked if the Cougars won, if the Vols won, if Kansas won, if Marquette won, if Purdue won, if North Carolina or Duke won? Nobody would be shocked at any of the. I think I don't know what has happened this season, but I think that this is the most wide open 64-2 play-in where there's just so many teams, that can make it to the Final Four, and anybody can win this thing. And I think this is going to make this year's March Madness probably the most exciting we've ever had, because no one knows what is going to happen against all these evenly matched teams. It's going to be fun. The greatest thing about this is the one and done. I mean, the one and done. You lose, you're out. I mean, I know we do that in college football now, but that's a little bit different because it's a football game and you got a week to think about it. These things are, you open on Thursday, you lose, you're out. You win, you go to Saturday, you lose, you're out. You win, you go. I mean, it's just, to me, March Madness has got to be up there as the most exciting thing. And this year is going to be the best because all of these teams are evenly
it's hard for me to make it the best because with this nil era, I used to grow up and I used to know the teams, and so now it's just I'm rooting based off of the colleges themselves. And Nate, I'm interested because when I used to think I knew what I was doing when I'd go into betting, I would look for those George Mason teams or those teams that started everybody for 5 years. Now it's almost like you're looking at these teams like they're Kentucky from 8 years ago, where they would get the five freshmen and they have to build the team. So is there anything that tracks, or do you any bettors track these teams that are nil built that start slow but are building up and getting the camaraderie and becoming better teams and potentially could be ranked like 50th or 40th, get into the tournament and make some runs? I think we'll see some of that in the future too, because there's just a lot of players that haven't played a lot together and they're just getting into form.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're probably like, like if you go to like shot metrics or something like that, like they're probably, you can isolate, a month of worth of stats or whatever. Right. I know a lot of guys do that coming into the tournament. They'll throw out November, December numbers, and they'll just try and just sort of like have a smaller sample size to sort of have a better idea of where they are right now. We do that in like the NFL too, sort of like mid-season, you'll sort of like start to compress some of the stuff. As teams sort of get injured or healthy, maybe you're only looking at like a 3 or 4 week sample instead of like 8. And I think that's true probably for like tournament prep as well. I know that KenPom has some filters too where you can do that. But I will say in terms of just the one thing that I wanted to say in terms of arguments for expansion, Lunardi had an article about this on ESPN, and I think it's worth like just sort of mentioning is that when the NCAA tournament was expanded to 64 teams in 1985. The number of teams in Division I that were going to the tournament were 23%. In the 68-team field now, only 19% go to the tournament. So if we got it back to the spirit of what it was in 1985, it would be an 80-team tournament, which seems reasonable to me. Then you get rid of all the stupid conversations about teams that are really fringy, and you just have like another sort of smaller round of playing games. It doesn't really change the schedule at all. It just add a few more things on Tuesday and Wednesday.
And the tournament will expand. This is TV. We're talking about TV contracts.
And all the conferences want it. They want the money.
Yeah, everybody wants the money. The TV contracts, all it takes is Peacock to say, we want an exclusive stream of, a 16-team play-in at the beginning that expands it to 80 or whatever. And we're going to pay $1 billion to have this exclusive stream on Tuesday, Wednesday that's all it takes. Because the exciting part about college basketball is that first week.
Yeah.
So those things will kind of expand there. We just have to be okay with that. That's the way it works now because of the TV contracts. Things will continue to expand, and we have that fight all the time. But
no, but I think that's the answer, right? You go to 80 and you have 16, playing games, so you end up with 64 anyway. And I think that gives, because those playing games, those teams are evenly matched. I mean, those are some exciting games when you look at it. And the spread is never 8; it's always like 2-1, pick them. So they're very evenly matched. It's a fun game. And but the other reason you got to do this, guys, and this is just in all candor here, it is the complete fall and collapse of the NIT. I mean, when I was growing up, when I was a young man, the NIT was a big deal. I mean, it was not the same as the NCAA, but if you didn't get in that whatever they had back then, if you got to pick to the NIT, those things were televised, and that was rival to the NCAA. It was a big deal. And now that is like just falling off the charts. It's like the also ran, second chance, minor league now thing. So the NIT's collapsed as far as I'm concerned is any relevance. So now that's all you have is the NCAA. So I think the 16 playing games on Tuesday, I like that. Why not? Right? Why not? Let give everybody a shot.
And I think the concern when you expand the playoffs is having, under 500 teams, like when the NBA, when, the 8 seeds, a lot of times are under 500. If you expand these NFL playoffs, we're going to start seeing the same thing. But going to this Ken Palm, you go to the 80th ranked teams and the teams that'll be in, they're all 20-8, 16-13. So they're all above 500. It would pass the eye test for everybody too. And the cynics out there. Because that's what my concern was when they said 80. My initial thought was, oh goodness, you're going to have under 500 teams. But if that's not the case, I see it. And hey, I'm all for putting more bets down and watching more college basketball. So
yeah, me too. And just to shill for one of my favorite sports, women's college hoops. That tournament takes place around the same time. If you love college basketball, get into women's hoops. If you like to gamble, get into women's hoops. It's a lot of fun. There's no the excitement around that sport has peaked, and I hope it stays there, and I hope it continues to grow. But this year, with some of the biggest stars in the game competing head to head in a tournament, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So
especially now that we all know him, it's like last year when it all exploded, we were all learning about Caitlin Clark, and now we are
right. Yeah, you had to be like, I mean, I watch a lot of women's basketball, so you had to be kind of a women's basketball junkie to know some of these people. But now, you can be a casual fan, and that's what you need in a sport. You just want people to be casual fans and be like, oh, Caitlin Clark's on, Angel Reese is on, Paige Buchers is on, whatever. I'll watch them. So it's a fun sport. That's my show for it. Dad, before I want you to do a couple minutes of West Virginia baseball, and then we'll get back to college basketball. So just a lot of college basketball, no problem. Before we do that, let's talk a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee, because if there's one thing I'm going to need while I am watching college basketball in March Madness in a couple weeks is that Beard Vet Coffee. Now, you go to beardvet.com. That's beardvet.com. Put in the promo code Godzilla, get you 10% off all your coffee needs. Beard Vet Coffee. They've got the K-Cups. They've got the whole bean if you like to ground them. Or you can just get the ground. They ship it to you fast. 2 to 3 days. It shows up right at your door. And if you have a beard like I do, I'm the only one on the show who keeps a beard. That's because I don't have a chin. But if you're like me and you need to hide your chin, you go to Beard Vet and you go to their Beard Vet, like their beard tinctures. You get all the oils, all the balms. You can, all the little scissors and razors. Keep it all nice and fresh and clean for a reasonable price. Godzilla, promo code Godzilla, beardvet.com, one of our most fun sponsors for sure. We love talking to Beard Vet. We love reading their ad, and we love buying their coffee. Dad buys a lot of Beard Vet coffee. So do I. So we love it. Now, Again, beardbet.com, promo code Godzilla, just like the website. It's 10% off. Dad, got about 4 minutes. I just want you to spend some time. I want to do this as much as we can because I know that our listeners enjoy it. They've been following Joe's career on your show for a very long time. So we'll just, and we got Mitch here, who's a West Virginia fan. So we'll just about 4 minutes, West Virginia baseball update. I know they're playing BYU. Tell us how they're doing. And Mitch, if you want to hop in there and say a word or two, and then we'll get to the top of the hour.
Well, I love it. And just end with college basketball. The most fun thing I like about women's basketball is tuning in to see what outfit Kim McCulvey has on. I think it's the funniest thing for me. She's got the best outfits ever. I don't even know how she comes up with them, but they always make me laugh, and it adds a little spice to the whole thing. It's kind of her signature. But look, West Virginia baseball, they opened with conference play at home against BYU, Brigham Young University, who's actually staying at the hotel that we're in here at the Marriott. And they came from Nevada. So they're in Provo, Utah. They played a game on Tuesday against UNLV, beat them, and then had to fly here. So 3-game series. They played a doubleheader yesterday because of the rain today. They have to get back. So very good start for the Mountaineers in conference play, beating BYU 2 out of 3. So they're 2-1 in the Big 12. You got to win 2 out of 3 at home when you're playing good teams in the conference. Their pitching was absolutely dominant this weekend, and the one game they lost was the first game of the doubleheader on Friday, where they got beat 4-1, but they won Thursday 10-4, and then they shut them out yesterday in the second game 2-0. They have great pitching, and so they're 2-1 in the conference. 3 of their best hitters have been out since basically the opening series in DeLand, which is Grant Hussey, their first baseman. He's hurt his leg. He can't run. He's out. The number 1 draft pick projected, JJ Weatherholt, he's been out since DeLand. He hit 445 last season. He's going to be out till probably the Oklahoma State series. We're not sure. And then their catcher, Suave, broke his kneecap, and he's going to be out till May. So their 3 best hitters are out. So you got a lot of other young fellows that have been given an opportunity, but their pitching is dominant, and that's why they were able to win these games. And next week, more non-conference games. They play Ohio State at home. Joe did not pitch in this series. However, with the game on the line, this is what I told them at dinner last night. Game was on the line last night. BYU loaded the bases in both the in the eighth inning and had guys on in the 9th inning, and the only person up in the bullpen they had was Joe. So he was ready to go, and if there was a 3-2 pitch with the bases loaded in the eighth inning with a left-hander coming up, if we didn't get that out, Joe was coming in, and then he was the only guy up in the 9th. So even though he didn't pitch, he was the guy that was up there that they were going to bring in with the game on the line at home and guys on base. So, he's very much a part of the team. And as a freshman, you gotta wait things out. But they play Ohio State at home next weekend. And the most fun thing for me is, the decision to move to Pittsburgh. I mean, we went to these games. I'm literally an hour away. So, you do your work, and the game was at 3. We left at 2 p.m. from home and got in our seats for the national anthem. So this is going to be a fun season. I'm going to look forward. I'm going to some of the road games. I'm going to Oklahoma. I've never been to Norman. So that's going to be fun. But West Virginia, they just got to hang in there, hang around until they get their hitters back. And I think they got a hell of a shot to get deep. They have great pitching. So we're going to see what plays out.
Watching a game in Norman, Oklahoma just seems like a dream. That would be the baseball mecca out in the Midwest. The transfer portal has helped out college baseball too, right? Like West Virginia, because of their recent success, especially last season, lost some key players in the outfield and were able to go into the transfer portal and get some players that probably wouldn't have been able to get if it wasn't for the past season's success. So like I almost mentioned with following these college basketball teams that start off slower and get better, this is a team that could really gel and get better as the season goes on, which is absolutely true. To watch.
Absolutely true. You're listening to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. We're about to do a whole hour of college basketball picks, baby. Do not turn the dial. We will be right back.
You're listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
You're listening to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show here with my father, John Fredericks, the Godzilla of Truth, Mitch Rogers, and Nate Perry, who stepped out for a minute. I'm sure he'll be back, though. We're talking college basketball the entire second hour here. Dad, before we do that, though, tell us a little bit about MyPillow. We got the best promo code in the history of promo codes in the history of America when it comes to MyPillow. Tell us a little bit about how people can get involved with that.
It's just the best. It's the best deals. I mean, there's so many things there. I've got the slippers on right now, right? So I'm doing my show. I got my MyPillow slippers on. They're about the best deal you're going to find. But they got the MyPillow 2.0. They got the Perscal sheets, the down comforter. I now buy my socks there because Joe told me you can't buy the socks that go up your leg because they cut your circulation off. So you got the socks that I guess cut off at your ankle. So they got dress socks, regular socks. So I buy my socks there, buy my towels there. Everything we buy is on MyPillow. And the reason why is the products are phenomenal and the prices are even better. So right now you go to mypillow.com. There's so many good things there. And they've been a sponsor of our show. You know, when I went to Mike Lindell and I had this concept and, I'm like, coming to sponsor us. He's like, you know what? I love the fact that you guys are doing something other than politics. I know this is fun for a lot of people. So he said, yeah, go ahead and do it, but change your promo code to fun because that's the idea of the show, right? And I'm like, yeah, Mike, you got it. So just go to mypillow.com and promo code fun. You're going to get up to 71% off. If you don't have the slippers, get them. If you don't have the socks, get them. If you don't have the towels, get them. If you don't have the down comforter, get it. We've also got the mattress topper. I mean, everything in our home is outfitted with MyPillow because we get a great price and a better product. So that's the whole key thing. There's so many things there. Even the dish towels, right? You just buy those in the Giant Eagle or something. They're better on MyPillow. So go to mypillow.com, promo code fun. You're going to get up to 71% off, and you can thank us later. And we thank Mike for giving us this opportunity. It's just really, really good stuff. And if you have to buy socks, mypillow.com. In fact, my daughter just texted me the other day with a laundry list of things on MyPillow that she needed. She said, can you order me these for me? It was like slip-on sandals, bed sheets, towels, this, that. There was like 8 things on it. I ended up, I'm like, this is like $250. She's like, well, okay. Could you do it anyway? So, yeah, okay. I put in promo code fun. She got all this stuff. So I got my whole family on it. So you're gonna love these products. MyPillow.com, promo code fun.
I love your Yinzer now with the Giant Eagle references. You're so Pittsburgh.
I'm gonna go Giant Eagle. Great. That's where we go, Yinzer. They got
so
a bar. You know that they have a bar in the middle of the store.
Yeah.
They have a bar. So every time Ann says, I'm going to go grocery shopping, I'm like, oh, I'll go. She's like, why? Well, I'll just, I'll drive you there. That way I get the bags in. I can care less about that, dude. I go there. I sit at the bar. They got like all the TVs on. This is in the middle of the grocery store. And they got like premium wines, wine tasting, beer tasting. You can get sloshed there by just doing the tastings without paying a dime. Y'all taste that. Y'all taste that. And every time you go in, they have these different beer tasting, I guess local breweries or something. So you get a little taste of it. I'll try that. There's like 8 of them. Comes up to like 3 pints when you're done.
You test every beer
love when you come.
I like that you're like 65 and you're drinking like you're in graduate school, being like, oh, well, it's all free if I just do the tastings.
I'll do the 12% stout.
Well, that's what I got to the game early last night here in Westwood, right across the street, only because I was determined to take advantage of West Virginia baseball happy hour, which is 2-for-1 beers half price. I was determined to do that, so I got 4 beers. at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Where's that at? Kegler's? Where do they do it at?
It was like, what? They did it.
Where do they do it at? What
right
restaurant?
Right at the stadium.
Oh, really? Jeez.
Buy one, get one free happy hour, and they only did it because they're playing BYU, and all the fans from BYU that came, well, they're Mormons and they can't drink.
Yeah.
So they do that on purpose when BYU's there. It's really diabolical. West Virginia athletics is diabolical. I just got to tell you. So where you're and they can't have
I hope you're driving Ann to the grocery store and she's driving you back home, because it seems like offering to drive is
either way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're just there for moral support, actually.
He's just there to carry the bags if you need to.
Carry the bags. Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay. So 14 wine tasters, and then you're carrying all the glass. That sounds smart. Let's get to Nevada UNLV. That'll be our first game. We threw that on the schedule. I threw that on the schedule because Nate and I'm also a Nevada alum, although I'm an alum of two different places, maybe soon to be three. Who knows? So we both love Nevada. We both love the Wolfpack. Basketball in Nevada, up there in Reno, is a huge deal. Looks like they're going to get in the tournament. 6 quad 1 wins, Nate, I believe, for the Wolfpack. Seems like they're going to get in. They're a team to watch for sure. Playing their state rival, hosting UNLV. They're a 6-point favorite. I'm sorry, over under 136.5, because the Wolfpack play pretty slow, although UNLV's tempo is a little bit quicker here. So Nate, we'll start with you, since you're the resident Wolfpack alum, along with me, I guess, and a rabid fan. So tell us how you see this game, and then we'll move on to our other panelists.
Yeah, I mean, Nevada's been on a little bit of a heater lately. I guess that would be an understatement. They beat Boise State in their most recent game. Another big win at Colorado State. They've knocked off Utah State at one point in the season. They beat San Diego State. They beat basically every big team in the Mountain West. It looks like they've probably accumulated enough wins that they don't need to do much more to get an at-large bid into the tournament with a 25-6 record. Not a lot of bad losses. A couple clunkers, but nothing terrible, and then a lot of good wins. So it looks like they're going to be in. UNLV, probably not a tournament team, even though they have, kind of a pretty record at 19-10. They're not a very good team. But this game is always close. And Nevada always does this thing where they just sort of stub their toe in Mountain West play against sort of crappy opponents sometimes. I worry about it less at home, but I have some sort of pause about betting Nevada on the spread just because they're not a very good free throw shooting team, and they've been especially not very good at the end of games lately. They've looked pretty nervy. So I think kind of where I'm leaning in this game, just for my sanity, just because I can't bet UNLV like ever. And I don't really want to just throw my money away on Nevada. I'll probably bet the under if I'm going to bet it. It just looks like the smartest play. UNLV's 7-3 to the under in their last 10 games. Nevada tends to be a more under team when they're a favorite, like they will be tonight. They're 13-9 towards the under as a favorite. They're 9-7 towards the under at home. So a lot of the under trends sort of point me to that, just because UNLV's, most recent winning streak of a couple games, they've played pretty good defense. And Nevada tends to do that sort of more at home, particularly when they're a favorite. They'll try and slow the game down. So that's sort of where my mind goes, is the under, but I'll definitely be rooting hard for Nevada. It'll be on at the bar here tonight.
Yeah, Wolfpack top 40 in adjusted defense on KenPom, like 36. They were top 40 team on KenPom just overall. So they've had a good year. Mitch, what do you think about UNLV Nevada here?
Admittedly, it's the first time I did research on either of the teams, but I did my research and I was watching some. I'm just gonna stick with Nevada. I'm gonna go with you. I'm just gonna stick with your all's alumni and just to take the points.
There we go.
Ride it out. What time's that game on tonight? I'm going to
7:30 West Coast, so 10:30 your time.
All right, cool, perfect.
Dad, we talk a lot of Nevada. We've been doing that for a long time. What do you think?
Well, listen, you went to Nevada, and Nate went to Nevada, and so I've been there. So, but I don't really know anything about the basketball team. So on this particular game, I'm going to pass.
Okay, look. We used to call Nate No Pick Nate because we do all the football games, and about half of them he'd go pass. So we're okay with a little pass here. I'm kind of with Nate. I like the under 136.5. I mean, UNLV does play a little bit of a quicker pace, but they're not like that good. So if it was Arizona, I might be like, oh, the over is probably the better pick here. But it's not like you. I mean, just because you play fast, you still have to put the ball in the hoop. So I kind of like the under there at 136.5. UNR has a great Nevada has a great defense there. I kind of think UNLV +6 is a smart play because of the free throws. Dan talks about that all the time in the show. You got to make those free throws. You cannot cover a large spread if you can't make free throws. So I kind of like that, but I'm kind of with Nate. I mean, I don't really want to bet UNLV either. They're not a team that I love to put money on. Same thing with Mississippi State. I just don't do it very often, but I might play the UNLV +6 just for the numbers game. So we'll see. Okay, we're going to move on now to UNC at Duke. So I usually load up the games so that we have, all the big ones near the back end of the show, but we don't cut to ads. So like we can't tease like coming up UNC, don't go anywhere. So I figured, why don't we just throw a big one on early, get the listeners fired up, and then we'll have some of the other big ones. So this is a huge game today. Number 7 UNC traveling to Duke to play number 9 Duke. Two teams really have had a pretty good season. Two teams that I think Nate mentioned as like the top 11 that could be make some real noise in the tournament. And I'm talking all this time, and I don't even have the spread up, although I know you guys probably
Four and a half.
Okay, so four and a half. 4.5. It moved to 5 on DraftKings, so moving a little bit. That happens in college basketball. So 4.5, 5. That's the spread. Over under 150.5. Dad, we'll start with you because I know you were doing some UNC Duke research. Then we'll go to Nate and Mitch.
I mean, I follow ACC basketball, and I've already bet North Carolina in this game. I took to 4.5. Maybe I should have waited till it went up to 5. I just don't believe in this Duke team. I'm sorry, Dukies. I just don't believe. I like Kyle Filipowski. I like their discipline in some areas, but I just feel this is a soft team going into a very, very tough, tough stretch here. I don't see the toughness in Duke that you saw under Coach K. I don't see the resiliency. They got a bunch of whiners. I thought that whole Wake Forest running on the court and, Filipowski's whining and, first he tries to trip somebody, then he gets hurt, then he blames them, then the coach is just a soft team. I mean, I don't like them in a big game. Now, certainly they're tough at home, no question about it. But I took the 4.5 here with North Carolina. They won the first meeting at home, and they won the game by 9. It was convincing. I saw that game. I thought it was a pretty convincing win. I looked at both teams and I said in the middle of the first half, I'm going to win this bet. North Carolina's a better team, and so we were able to do that. Now Duke is 15-4 in the ACC, but they beat up a lot of the bad teams. So I like North Carolina here. I think they're a little bit underrated going into this tournament. They might be a team to watch, but I think they win the whole game, pull the upset at Duke, and then we can. All the Dukies are going to have to, come up with 92 reasons why they should have won the game, which is basically what they do.
That is what they do. Now, Nate, one of the things that we've talked about a lot on this show in the past is the home-away splits. So even though UNC and Duke are pretty evenly matched, Duke plays much better at home, as always. It's a tough place to play, and whenever these two teams match up at home, it can be – or whenever they match up, the home team often has a huge advantage because it is the biggest college basketball game in the country. I think that still holds true to this day. So that's probably why the spread is moving in that direction. So like Dad, Nate, do you see some value on the Tar Heels at +5, or is this a game that Duke kind of just steps on the gas and wins?
I think that there's some value on UNC plus the points as well. I'm not sold on Duke. And if you look at these teams, they're basically mirror images of each other. We've been talking about Ken Pom, so we can talk about it again. UNC's 25th in adjusted offense. They're 6th in adjusted defense. Duke is 7th in adjusted offense, but 22nd in adjusted defense. So they're basically just the reverse of each other. They're pretty good. One's got a pretty good offense, and one's got a pretty good defense, and the other one's, really good at the other thing. So in terms of that, they look fairly equal on paper. So this comes down to sort of more intangible matchup-y type things. I think the Tar Heels have an edge inside with Armando Bacot. I think that UNC generates better three-point opportunities per shot quality. That seems to be true anyways. And UNC, when they won that first game, shot really well from three, which has not been their strong point this season. And Duke shot shockingly bad from three. But those feel more like indicative of sort of like regression. Duke doesn't generate a ton of open threes, but they shot pretty well for a part of the season. That's a stat that'll regress. Likewise for UNC, they generate a lot of open looks. They just hadn't made any. So those numbers feel like they're just kind of coming more towards the middle as the season progresses. So I like the Tar Heels here. I lean towards like the stronger defense in these close rivalry matchups, and that's UNC. They should be able to control the paint. And I just think that they have a little bit of an edge. I just wouldn't want to lay points with Duke in this game.
Mitch, any interest in the Blue Devils?
Yeah, I like the way that line is moving. It's making me think that Duke's the play. I'm old enough to see that every year that these teams split with each other, especially when they are this closely ranked. The last 10 games, Duke's defense has been better than UNC's too. So when you're looking at it from a matchup there, but you're right, they're mirror images of each other. It's whether or not you think that Duke can do the 5 points. I think the home court advantage is enough, and they split just like they always split. And I'm just glad Filipowski's okay. I was so worried, and then he came back alley-ooping and, just dunking on everybody the next game. So I'm glad he's okay. I hate Duke with a passion because the first team I ever loved in my life, hold your ears, was the UNLV 1989 team. And then Duke beat them. So I've hated Duke forever since then.
Cartanian, right? Jerry Cartanian with the towel.
Yeah. But Mama, yeah. Yes, that was my fit. Stacey Augman. That was my team. I hate Duke, but I'm going to pick Duke with the points.
Yeah, I'm going to go with UNC. Just that sort of closing line value feels right to me at +5. If the line keeps moving in that direction, I'm just going to kind of take the road dog. It's not like UNC is a pushover. This spread really, without the home court, should be like 2. So I think the more it moves in that direction, the more I like it. But we'll see. Okay, we're going to move on to South Florida. USF travel into Tulsa, Oklahoma, play the Golden Hurricanes. Now, this is an interesting game. One of the reasons I put it on the schedule here is so the spread is 4.5, but we're talking KenPom. So if you're on KenPom and you're just looking at the overall rankings, USF is like a top 100 team, something 80th in the country, just across the board. And Tulsa's way down there at 190, but they play a pretty fast tempo. That's the best part of their game. They move pretty quick. So Nate, will start with you here. South Florida at Tulsa. Any interest in the home dog, or is USF just way better?
No, I think I gotta like the home dog. USF is just sort of like a hysterical 24 in the AP. There's nothing that indicates that they're like a top team when you just look at their metrics other than their record. They've won some games, but they played pretty like a really soft non-conference schedule, before they got into American Athletic Conference schedule. But Tulsa, I don't know. This game just, I guess, okay. So sometimes you just look at a game and you think this feels like a trap. South Florida won by 19 when they played head-to-head a month ago in South Florida. Now they're going to Tulsa, and Tulsa's a 4.5-point dog. Tulsa hasn't played awesome. They beat Temple, but we know how that goes. But before that, they got blown out by UTSA. So I think that really this feels like they're just begging you to lay kind of short points against a pretty bad Tulsa team with a ranked USF. Tulsa's 13-4 at home, just straight up. They're 11-4-1 at the spread at home against the spread at home. I kind of just lean Tulsa. Neither of these teams looks very good. I'm more inclined to just take the trend and try and dodge the trap with Tulsa.
Dad, you're laughing. You must like USF.
On Wikipedia, if you look up square bet, just put that 2-minute video there. That's it. Okay, trap game. He's got all the metaphors in there. Like Nate was trying to pick 5 reasons that he was trying to make up to bet Tulsa this game. This is my best bet of the weekend. I can't believe this is only 4.5. This thing, first of all, South Florida is the 24th ranked team in the country, not 80. I don't know where the hell he came up with that. I don't know who the hell Ken Palm is. This team is number 24. They won 15 in a row. They got a 15-game win streak. They played Tulsa in South Florida. They blew them off the court by 19 or 20. Tulsa was never in this game. I mean, this is one. I mean, you say, oh, they didn't play anybody. Okay, well, whoever they're playing, they're beating them, right? That's the object. Win the game, whoever you play. And they just blew out Tulane. That was their 15th straight win. They're 19-6. They covered the spread on a consistent basis, and you're laying 4.5. I mean, what is it about Tulsa that says, oh, I think Tulsa's going to beat one of the hottest teams in the NCAA because they're at home and they give up 74 points a game? This is all this metric nonsense you millennials spew out. Okay, bottom line is I got a team that's won 15 in a row. They're one of the hottest teams in basketball. They're covering the spread. They're winning on both ends. They're loose, and they just beat this team by 20. And now I only got to lay 4.5. It's the best bet of the weekend.
Mitch, you're the tiebreaker here so far.
I think you answered it though. They play the likes of Florida Atlantic and Tulane. I mean, come on. I mean, what's Tulsa's Ken Palm? I couldn't find
190.
Oh, 190. All right. So, I don't know. After that impassioned play, no. I when I did my picks last night, I had Tulsa just with the points here. But I agree with you. This feels like a trap game. 19-point spread. ESPN's predictor has USF at 60-some%, so it just feels that way. But I'm going to take Tulsa at home with the points here and really watch these teams for the first time this season.
You guys are losing money.
Well, maybe I like Tulsa too. I mean, if it's supposed to be a 19-point spread and the bookmakers have it at -4.5, they're baiting you into taking USF. That's what that is. So, I mean, I like Tulsa at +4.5.
They're looking at the whole thing is based on strength of schedule, right? I get it. They're looking at strength of schedule, but you can only play the teams that's on your schedule. Like that you're supposed to win games. They've beaten the teams they're supposed to beat. You say, oh, they're so weak sisters. Yeah, they beat them. I mean, they're not the players are not making this schedule up, right? Whatever league they're playing, and that's who they're playing, and they're winning every game, and it's not even close. And so this team is underrated. This is going to be a blowout, and this is one of those teams. If you look at the things you said in the tournament, Nate, about catch somebody that might be hot, this could be a team to win if they get in the first round.
I mean, both USF and Tulsa have bad strength of schedules. Like Tulsa isn't any better, but yeah, USF is like 157th in strength of schedule. Here, Nate, you'll love this. This is the reason I don't like USF. Their luck ranking, Dad's gonna hate this. Their luck ranking is 30th. So they're the 30th luckiest team in the country, and their luck's going to run out here. It's the luck ranking.
What do you guys make this stuff up as you go in the air? What on earth is a luck ranking? Is that like the flipping the coin at the beginning of the game and how many times you call heads? What is a luck ranking?
It's a series of variables that tries to isolate for how lucky a team is, like any other algorithm or equation that statistics can bring up. So anyway, their luck ranking is 30th, so they're a lucky team. Tulsa's luck ranking is a little bit lower here, so I like Tulsa +4.5. I also like the over of 145.5. Tulsa plays a little bit quicker. If you like Tulsa to cover, then you know they're going to score. 145 is pretty low, so I'll take that as well. Okay, Dad. Now, one of the places where you hope your luck ranking is number 1 is Rosie's Gaming and Casino. If there's one place where you need to be lucky, it's that. So tell us a little bit about.
I still can't get over the luck rank. What does that mean? Like you win the tip, or like there's a bad call?
Yeah, it's like a series of variables.
What is that? What is the luck ranking in basketball? The ball goes in and out, and then goes in. Like like I mean, what is it? How can you even determine that in basketball? Now, I can see it.
It's like in baseball when you downgrade like 1-run wins in baseball because they're not really indicative of like a dominating performance. It's the same for basketball. End of game stuff, missed free throws, lucky threes, all that.
Yeah, and like for instance, a good example is the Vikings last year, not this past year, but 2 years ago, when they won all those 1-point games. Their luck ranking was the highest in the country, and all you had to do was fade them every week. Yeah, and they sucked. I mean, they lost in the playoffs immediately, and you just had to fade them every week, and you won money because they were like the luckiest team in the country. So it checks out. It's just statistics, but. Dad, go ahead and tell us about Rosie's Gaming Casino, where your luck ranking needs to be number 1.
Well, that's where we're going today, man. We're going to Rosie. We're going to Virginia. We got some stuff to do there right after because there's no game today. We're going to Rosie's, and we're going to have a lot of fun. That's where I'm going to win my money today with UCF and what's the other one? I'm betting North Carolina plus 4.5. So we're going to Rosie's. Ann loves playing the Fire Dragon game. They got the best games there. They got the biggest jackpots. Rosie's is just fun. I mean, that's all I can say. Of all the casinos I've been to, it is the most fun. It's a different atmosphere. It's very clean. There's no smoke. I mean, it's not like you go into one of these Las Vegas casinos where it's like, and there's people running around with drinks and all that. It's very different. And so we always have a good time there. They got the best jackpots and the biggest payouts because they have the lowest take of any casino in America because that's way the state of Virginia set it up when they first got their license. So that means you get bigger payouts and bigger jackpots. And it's just fun. And it's a great place to spend the day. And Ann will do the slot machines. I'll go upstairs and I'll do the basketball and things of that nature. They also got OTB. So I'll bet some of that. But it's one of the most fun things we do. Just go to rosiesgaming.com, rosiesgaming.com. Have fun, win money. And if you're in Virginia, they're everywhere. They're in Emporia, right? We're right from NC, right up 95. They're in Collinswood by Danville. They're in Dumfries in Northern Virginia. They're in Hampton. They're in Richmond, right by the studio. Colonial Downs in New Kent. They're in Vinton by Roanoke. So they're all over the state. You can find one there. You're going to have a lot of fun. Go to rosiesgaming.com, rosiesgaming.com.
Up next, and you're listening to the Godzilla Win Saturday Pick Show, by the way. We're doing college basketball here. If you're just tuning in, we're running through all our college basketball picks for this loaded Saturday. A couple weeks away from March Madness, so you don't want to miss out. Next on the schedule, New Mexico traveling to, I believe Utah State is in Provo. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they're traveling to Provo, Utah, play Utah State. New Mexico, a team that Nate loves, plus 3.5, over under 160 because both these teams play at a pretty high pace. So Nate, we'll start with you because you are the New Mexico. Are they the Lobos or is that New Mexico? I think they're the Lobos.
They're the Lobos.
Yeah, you're the Lobos #1 fan here. Might have to buy you a hat. Go ahead and tell us why you like New Mexico.
Yeah, I just can't see clearly. I just like New Mexico. I don't know why. I mean, they play in the same conference as Nevada. I should by all rights, I guess, not like any other Mountain West team, but I do kind of like watching New Mexico play. I watch them live. I've watched them on TV a lot. So a lot of this picks portion is going to be me just justifying why I like New Mexico. I guess I like them in this game, and this is a huge game for them. I probably wouldn't be this much of a homer if New Mexico didn't need to win this to really sort of guarantee themselves a real good chance of getting in the tournament. It looks like Utah State's pretty much locked up. They're in 6th in most bracketology things, so a 6th seed. So they're pretty much in. New Mexico's last 4 in on Lunardi's, so they need to do some work. I guess what it comes down to is New Mexico's really good at not turning the ball over. They have multiple ball handlers who take care of it pretty well, and they force a ton of turnovers. Utah State is basically the opposite. They turn the ball over quite a bit, and they don't ever really force any. So in a game where this is probably going to be pretty close, it's 3-ish point spread depending on where it is, 3.5. You figure they're pretty evenly matched. I'll take the team that likely, given how well New Mexico also crashes the offensive glass, I'll take the team that will probably have a few more possessions in this game, which I think will be New Mexico.
Mitch, what do you think?
Man, I was such a Jamal Mashburn fan too, right? His son's playing for New Mexico right now. Utah State has been so great. And then they're 90-70 win over San Jose State. I got to watch some of that. Darius Brown and with his 20-some points. You're right there, Nate. They can score in droves. I mean, they have double-digit scores everywhere. I haven't watched enough. Of course, I watched Utah State, this week, and now I have, now I'm just leaning there because I just saw them. So I'm going to go the opposite. I'll be the antagonist on this one. I'll take Utah State to get their 25th
It's
win.
probably smart.
And solidify.
Yeah, I mean,
a five seed.
Utah State is a good team.
I think in a vacuum, I'd take Utah State, but
yeah,
I don't live in a vacuum. I live in a very emotional, fraught world.
You do, but look, that also the beware the bias of like I watched this team play once and now I'm in love. That happens in college basketball all the time because there's so many teams. So then you're like, Utah State's really got something going on. I watched 2.5 quarter, I watched 75% of the game the other day while I was making nachos, and I really like what they're doing in Provo. So beware of that bias as well. Both Nate and Mitch here have some huge bias.
Be scared here.
Go ahead, Dad.
This is a very tough team at home. They've only lost one home game this season. What makes you think they're going to lose in another home game this season? And why are they a 3.5-point favorite? When, if you watch the Lobos, it's a very exciting team. They score a lot. Like you said earlier, they get into triple digits. They're pretty good, well-balanced team. But I think Nate mentioned trap game earlier. I'm going to go with Utah State here, laying the 3.5, just because. I mean, New Mexico State is 5-5 on the road. So win a game, lose a game. But when you got a team that is this dominant at home, this is a huge game for them. They got something to prove that they belong somewhere, and their season is toast today if they don't come out and win this game at home. They only got one loss, so I think this team is better than a lot of people think they are. That's why Vegas has them as a 3.5-point favorite against a team, the Lobos, that like everybody's kind of heard of because you see them play once in a while, and they're fast and they're fun to watch, and they can put 10 up like that. Their game is tied, and all of a sudden they're up by 15. So they're an exciting team to watch. But a lot of times the bookmakers will get this thing figured out before anybody else. So I'm going to go with you guys. I'm going to go with Utah State at home laying 3.5.
I like the over 160. New Mexico, like Nate says, they play 4 guards and they play fast. They're the 5th ranked team as far as tempo goes in the country. Although I don't have their free throw numbers, which always kind of worries me when it comes to overs. You got to hit your free throws, but they play really fast. And
around 70%.
70%. That's fine, respectable. And I mean, Utah State plays slower for sure, but I think they can match the tempo of New Mexico when they want to, especially at home. I'll tell you what, I've coached a lot of basketball in my life, and I can tell you this: you're playing at your home gym, you're going to score more points. I can't explain it. You shoot there every day. Basketball dimensions are weird. It's like golf. You play at your home course, you can shave off a couple of strokes. Same thing with basketball. You can add a couple points to that when you're at home, just because you're comfortable with the dimensions of the court and the way the rim bounces and everything else. So I'm going to go with the over 160, a little bit high, but I'm not that worried about it considering New Mexico plays so quickly. Should be fine. Okay, let's move on to Arizona. Number 5, Arizona, traveling to USC to face the Fighting Bronny Jameses. Bronny still averaging 5 points a game there. Maybe he'll score 6 today. You never know. Arizona is a 8-point favorite on the road, over under 159.5. So USC is not necessarily a powerhouse here, but I like talking Arizona basketball because I like the team. I like the Wildcats, I guess. So Nate, we'll start with you again here. Can you lay that big 8-point spread, or maybe you want to taste the over under at 159.5? I mean, Arizona plays really quick.
I don't think I want to lay the points in this game. I mean, this, if we talk about, sports betting being sort of a market, this looks like probably the ultimate sort of sell high spot for Arizona. They're coming off, just 4 blistering wins, destroy Washington, Arizona State, Oregon, UCLA, those were games they were all big favorites in, and they just pasted these teams. So from that perspective, like, how much higher can Arizona go now that they've locked up all the stuff in the Pac-12? They're the number 1 seed going into the Pac-12 tournament. everything's taken care of. This game really means nothing for Arizona other than maybe some sort of seeding consideration for the tournament committee. But I doubt even a loss here would change much to get Arizona off the 1 line or 2 line. So from that perspective, I don't love Arizona here. I just don't think they have a ton to play for. And USC's looked a lot better in their last 6 games. If we're just sort of isolating for when they've sort of been healthy and really found their rhythm, they're 4-2. They had a double OT loss against Colorado where they lost 92-89, and they lost to Washington State by 3 in a game that they probably should have won. So they look like they're just playing a lot better. So I'm willing to take the points with USC here because it's basically a nothing game for Arizona, and for USC, they seem to be trying to sort of find some momentum late in the season.
Mitch, are you drinking the Trojan Kool-Aid?
No, I mean, what I think here, and I agree with you, Nate. When you look at this game, Arizona has everything pretty much locked up, unless they're just vying for tournament seeding in the March Madness NCAA tournament. What I like here is the under, just because I feel like if USC is going to keep it close, they're going to grind it out. Arizona is the top scoring team in the paint, so perhaps they'll just rely on that. I just don't think they'll be as hot from the outside shooting today, and it grinds it down, and we hit that under. I just took a note from John. I wanted to take USC, but I don't think they'll win. So I'm just going to stay away from the point spread and do an underplay.
Well, Dad will love that. Go ahead, Dad.
Well, you're smart, Mitch. You're catching on. By the way, it looks like Russell Wilson's going to sign with the Steelers. I want to throw that in after the Denver Broncos cut his ass.
What?
I'm Adam Scheftering.
I just got to throw that. I got to throw that out. So he met with before I get to this game. So Russell Wilson meets with the Steelers. Personally, sign him. You guys don't have a quarterback. Give him a shot, right? Sign him. He doesn't have anything else to do.
Oh, I thought it happened. Oh, yeah, I knew that stuff. Yeah.
He's meeting with Pittsburgh. Sean cut his ass. I mean,
let him cook.
All that money. Unbelievable. Look, I like Arizona here because they're going to win the game. I mean, the season for USC has been a disaster. They got a losing record. This idea that, Arizona doesn't have anything to play for. They have a game to play and go out and win the game, and they already blew out UCLA, so they stay in LA. So it's not like they're traveling the next day. So they're right there. This game is going to be a blowout. I love Arizona. I think it was 8.5, 9.5. They're gonna win by 20, 25, 28. I like Arizona in this game. It's a mismatch.
Yeah, I just like the over. I know Mitch likes the under. Arizona just scores so much. If you're going to keep up with Arizona, if you're the Trojans, you have to score. And I'm never really afraid of an over until we get to about 165, and then it starts to get real hard for me to feel like I can do it. So at home, I'm going to take the over at 159.5. I got a lot of overs here that I like. So we'll see about that. Now, next game, we'll talk about Arizona's former coach, Sean Miller, there at Xavier. See what I did there? That's called a segue. So Xavier is playing, now I can't get the game up because it gave me soccer on DraftKings. Thanks, DraftKings. There it is. Marquette traveling to Xavier. Marquette, been a pretty good team this year. A couple big blowout loss to UConn, but otherwise been a really respectable team. One of those teams I think Nate mentioned is the top 11. They're a 3-point favorite traveling to Xavier, over under 158. Nate, go ahead. Give us your pick for Marquette Xavier.
Yeah, I mean, this feels a little square, but I kind of like Marquette here minus the 2.5. Xavier's not very good. Marquette is really good. This feels trappy, but I just can't get off Marquette. I feel like there's a part of me that just feels like Marquette is still being downgraded a little bit too much because these last 2 losses, they've lost a couple games in a row. They're without their best player, Kolek, who's injured for this game as well. Possibly might miss the Big East tournament. Hopefully for them returns to the NCAA tournament because that's probably the only way they can make a deep run because of what he brings to the team, as the reigning Big East player of the year. But losses to UConn and at Creighton are not inexcusable. I mean, those are 2 elite teams. I think Marquette is also an elite team when healthy, but I think they got to learn how to play without Kolek at some point, and Xavier's probably a get right spot for them to be able to do that. Marquette just destroyed them in the first game by 24. The first time they played, and Xavier's just not very good at shooting the three. They were bad last time they played them. So I kind of lean Marquette here, but I don't love the play. I feel like I'm probably just missing something.
Mitch, do you feel likewise here, or you want to take Xavier?
Yeah, this one's a little scary. With Kolek out, I do think Marquette's susceptible to a loss here, and Xavier pounds the boards a little bit, and it just has that feeling. When you see the 8, you see a team ranked 8th and only 3 points, and you're about to take them. I feel like it's a trap game, and in that case, I would take Xavier all day. So I'm going to take Xavier. I just feel that that's what Vegas is pushing me to do based off of trying to trap me into the other side.
Dad, I know you're taking Marquette. -3.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely taking Marquette as my second best bet of the game. I mean, Xavier's 9-10 in the Big East. I mean, they played horrible basketball. And, all of a sudden, like, why is this game 3, right? Now, the Golden Eagles, look, every sport that I play, there is a team that year I don't want to bet on, right? Doesn't matter, bet, win or lose, like hockey, Capitals. I bet on the Capitals. They get blown out. I bet against them like I did the Penguins the other night. They blow out the Penguins. Like, it doesn't matter. I've lost 19 straight games on the Caps either way, so I just stay away. I got the same thing going on here with Marquette. Can't seem to win a bet on this team, but I think I'm going to win today. I know Xavier's at home, but look, they're just not that good. I mean, they can't even win Big Ace games. They're getting blown out. And remember, Marquette's had a lot of injuries. If you look at the game, if you look at their last game against UConn, where they got beat handily, but they were down by, I think, 12 at the end of the first half, and then their defense clamped down. They clawed their way back in that game, so they end up getting beat. But I think, look, if you're Marquette and you're going to be a serious basketball team going in this tournament and going into the NCAA dance, this is a game you've got to win on the road. If you're going to be a serious player, I mean, if I'm their coach, that's what I'm saying. You got to go to Xavier here, and you got to beat this team handily if we're going to be a serious factor going into the dance, going to the conference. So I like Marquette here in a big way. They're just a better basketball team.
Mississippi right now in the House, both the House and the Senate are having a big school funding fight. The House has reformed the way that they want to fund public schools, and the Senate is trying to fund public schools the way that they have always funded it, just with more money. And one of the things that I keep telling people, whoever will listen, because the House bill is a much better bill, is that the current way we fund public schools in Mississippi is extremely complicated. Nobody knows how to do it. There's you have to get 20 people at the Department of Education to do it for every school. It's very complicated. It doesn't make any sense. I say that to say, don't overthink things. Sometimes the simplest answer is right in front of you. Make the funding formula simpler. Bet Marquette -3. I mean, sometimes you just overthink it into oblivion. Marquette is just a better team. They're just a better team. I know Colette's hurt, and that he is a major factor. I know that they've had 2 clunkers, but like Nate said, I mean, God, Creighton and UConn are like 2 of the best teams in the country. Like, it's not like they're getting blown out by teams that suck. Marquette's a good team, and I think they'll be able to handle Xavier by 3. Maybe they only win by 4, but that's all I need. So I'm going to take Marquette -3 here. Just don't overthink it.
I love my bet now so much. I just love it. It's so juicy. It's so spreading.
Yeah. Make sure to log it into Godzilla Wins Daily Picks. I've got.
I will.
I'm gonna do the same thing. Sometimes we get busy. It can be tough to do that. I sometimes suck at doing that too. You get off the show and you're like, all right, no more sports for 10 minutes.
I did. I went 8-2 after the show on my.
Look at that. See, that's the thing. I mean, you can really get on a heater because the show forces you to do more research than you would with, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, you might do research on like 2 or 3 games, but when we throw like 8 or 9 or 10 games in an hour, we're forced to do more research than most people, and at least more than I would normally. So my plays are a little bit sharper. So then that can happen. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Healthy Cell before we move on. I don't want to talk Arkansas, Alabama. That game sucks. I don't know why I put on the schedule. Arkansas blows. 15-point spread. Who wants to talk about that? But I will.
I was wondering why that game was on the schedule. It's like, who cares?
Because
Take
I
over.
I don't, because it's really hard to do this every week. Like it's hard to pick 10 games where all the spreads are like sharp, unless you're spending like 2.5 hours finding all the spreads, and then you don't. So sometimes you're just like, well, I think Arkansas's okay, whatever. They suck. And so it just happens sometimes. College basketball is like really difficult with that kind of stuff. So but we'll skip it. We got 2 big games coming up, and we'll talk a little bit about Healthy Cell, joint health and mobility. This is a big product for me. I love joint health and mobility. I take it every day because I need my joints to be healthy as I get a little bit older. I like to go to the gym. I like to hit the weights. I like to run around. And the joints, they start to fail you. The tendonitis in the elbows, the wrists, the knees. The knees are a killer. All you got to do, what I've learned the older I get, is if I turn my knee wrong, just for a millisecond, I can't walk for like 3 days. It is just it's an impounding issue that continues to become difficult. But one of the ways that I combat all those issues is with Healthy Cells, joint health and mobility. It's one of our favorite products from Healthy Cell. We love REM sleep as well, and they have so many other great products too. But we love talking about joint health and mobility because you get off the Aleve, you get off the naproxen, the Tylenol, the anti-inflammatories, and you're taking something that's regenerative. So it's strengthening your tendons as you continue to try to live a healthy and active lifestyle. All you got to do is go to healthycell.com, put in the promo code Godzilla, just like the website Godzilla, and you get a 20% off of all your needs there. So promo code Godzilla, healthycell.com, 20% off. And look, if you're at GodzillaWins.com and you're reading one of Mitch's or Nate's or Dan's fantastic articles or my dad's picks, you'll see the Healthy Cell banner there. You click it, and that's going to take you right to the promo code. It'll pop up right at Healthy Cell. We have that hardwired into the banner, so you don't even have to go and find the promo. It'll pop right up. All you got to do is go to read one of our excellent articles and click on the banner, and you're good to go. So healthycell.com, promo code Godzilla, 20% off, joint health and mobility, REM sleep, all that stuff. We want to always shout out Healthy Cell for supporting us. Okay, as I was doing that, I got fired up and I forgot what our next game is. That's going to be Kentucky at Tennessee. Tennessee, one of the best teams in the country here, playing a Kentucky team that has been formidable basically in the last couple months as well. And I'm basically stalling so I can type in Kentucky and get the spread here so I can stop talking.
9. Tennessee's up by favored by 9 now on DraftKings.
Okay, I got 7.5, but
that's some movement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it opened at 9, and then it must have moved down and then back up. Yeah.
So it went down and up.
Who knows? It's 9. I'm seeing 7.5 on the app, but it doesn't always update. So we'll place it right around there, 7.5, 9. Over under 166.5. That's because both teams play pretty quickly. Nate, we'll start with you. You want to lay the points with the Vols, or do you want to take the Wildcats here?
I like Kentucky. This is actually probably the only game that I've actually bet on so far. I bet Kentucky when it opened. I like them here. This is basically a meaningless game for the Vols. They've already locked up the number 1 seed in the SEC tournament. Again, it's, motivation's not like my biggest consideration in these end of season games, but you got to figure that Kentucky's a little hungrier than Tennessee is in this exact moment. Tennessee's probably already looking forward to the SEC tournament. Kentucky lost earlier in the season to Tennessee, but, a win here gets them a number 4 seed. It gets them a double bye. So this is a big one for Kentucky. And it's a big one for a Kentucky team that just seems to be sort of moving in the right direction recently. They've been red hot lately. So I just think that, if you're just looking at teams that are sort of which direction they're moving and sort of what the temperature of the room is, UK is surging. I mean, they've been scoring a bazillion points. They hung 93 on Vanderbilt. They put 111 up against Arkansas, 91 against Mississippi State, 117 against Alabama. I mean, they've just been absolutely electric offensively. So I would be inclined to just ride the hot team here against a team that's probably just not really super motivated to put up a huge performance. So I love Kentucky in the spot.
Dad, you're shaking your head in agreement.
No, I'm totally with Nate. I think this is a long way. I get a lot of best bets today. Normally, I don't have this. You get one or two you like. I get a lot of games here I love. This is one of them, and I got on this thing at 8 earlier in the week because, look, exactly what Nate said. This is an absolutely meaningless game for the Tennessee Volunteers. They've already clinched a number 1 seed in the tournament. They're getting ready for that. You know, they're probably going to play some of their other players, give them a little playing time. Certainly as a coach, that's what I would do in a game like this. Kentucky got hot at the end. It's too little, too late, whatever. But they're going to be at home. It's going to be sold out. They're tough at home. And I just don't see the motivation here. And I know Nate said you always can't ride that. And you're absolutely right, especially at the NFL at the end of the season when, you know, teams that are out of it are beating playoff teams, like when the Titans knocked out Jacksonville. So you can't figure a lot of these things out. But I just think I like Kentucky today because they're hot. I mean, they're finally winning. They're playing better. They're lighting up the scoreboard offensively. They're hitting threes. They're playing better at the end of the season. I don't think Tennessee's got anything to play for at all. And they're on the road, and they're just looking ahead to the tournament. So if you can get the 7.5 with the Wildcats today, right now, jump on it.
Mitch, are you in agreement, or you want to zag and lay the ball?
I'm gonna zig, and I'm gonna zag. John, you said something earlier about what do you mean a meaningless game? They have to suit up, play with pride, and they're on their home court. I know that Tennessee scores a lot. They also give up a ton of points a game, and that's one thing they're not going to be able to fix. And I just think that their streak of scoring 99, 102 games comes to an end today. They don't cover the spread. And again, I love looking at these lines, like saying what Vegas wants me to do. And this one, give me the 9. Give me the 9. I don't even want the 7.5. They're gonna cover the 9 points. I'm going Tennessee to take it to the bank.
Playing it up to 9. I love that. That's like Dad'll do that in football. He'll be like, play it up to minus 14.
Yeah, I don't know why this team isn't minus 20.
Yeah,
This is a bargain.
Right. Minus 20 in NFL. But he'll do that. So look, minus 9. I like Kentucky plus 7.5. Ride the hot hand. Don't overthink it. But I hear what Mitch is saying there, and he's now the outlier on 2 games. So usually, sometimes the outlier will do that. We're all drinking the Kool-Aid. Maybe we're all mesmerized by Nate's talk earlier about his college basketball approach, and now me and Dad are just like, oh yeah, that's real smart.
Well, Kentucky's Ken Palm on defense is 100.
I think we're mesmerized here by Nate's bandana that he's got on, as some kind of bandana thing going. And I don't know, I think his hair's getting longer. I can see it in the back. He did shave today, so that looks good. But he's got his hair grown out in the back, and he's got some kind of crazy Nevada bandana on. It's kind of an interesting look you got there, Nate.
I'll put this out there. When I first started losing my hair when I was like 23, I started wearing a bandana right there in the front to cover the receding hairline. I don't know if that's what's going on with Nate. Maybe
I got all the hair.
No, Nate's
hair.
I went bald at 27. You were 23.
He's got that bandana thing going.
I just have it to keep it from just like flying out on the sides.
Yeah, that's probably the smart.
Well, that's why God made hats.
Yeah.
Do we have a healthy cell hair implant?
That's what we need. I mean, look, Mitch, 27, man. I would have taken 27. I mean, 23 was when the hairline started to go, and I got barely. I'm coming home soon. At some point I'll start shaving it off, but for the time being, I just the people like
it's just easier. It's just easier.
We're not going to talk about this for more than 30 seconds. I hate my long hair. It's not for me.
Let's get rid of it.
I wish I could.
Was right. I mean,
I wish I could. I've got
you just got to go to the Great Clips and started a 2.5. Right.
Look, no, I understand. There are other people. There are other people who like it. So I hear what you're saying, but I've got other people who prefer the long hair, so I keep it for her. So anyway, let's move on to our last game. Houston at Kansas, big one here, big one. Really excited about this game. We're going to start with Nate because he has been all in on the Cougars all year long. He's been right. I mean, Houston is the number 1 team in the country, number 1 overall rated team on Ken Palm. They're an 8-point favorite here. That's because Kansas, as we've talked about, different team on the road. Really, really strong at home, beat everybody at home, kind of stuck on the road. So 8-point favorite for the Cougars, over under 137. That's because Houston famously plays the best defense in the country. Nate, go ahead. I know you're going to take Houston -8. Tell us why.
No, I'm not going to take Houston -8, although I think that's probably the right play, just because I love Houston. My love for them is well documented on the show as well. I've had, 20-1 on them to win the national title since like March of last year, April of last year. April, I guess. It was like right after the national title game. It was like the day after. I was like, what's next? And I bet on Houston, and it's looked great now. But I think that if I was just betting it, I mean, I'll probably just be watching it just to root Houston in. If I was betting it, I think the over is probably the play. I mean, this game closed at 100, or they totaled 143 in their last matchup about a month ago. And in that game, Houston played uncharacteristically bad on offense. They shot 36% from the field and 31% from three. Neither of those numbers are in line with their really like offensive performance. So this line feels just a little bit lower than it should be, just because these are two really good defensive units. But I still feel like Houston's probably going to be able to score, and they'll probably be able to score a little bit better than they did against Kansas last time. So I like this game going over 137, but no play on the side for me.
Mitch, you want to take Houston?
No, I took, so in my article that's going to be coming out later, I took Houston. Kansas has a little bit to play for because they want to try to secure the double bye, but Houston, they've had a win streak since February 3rd. I think they want to keep that momentum rolling into this, and I don't think they're going to have like a let up game. And Kansas, and I think when you really see Kansas's Achilles heel, which is their bench, is when it's on the road. And because for whatever reason, Kansas's starting five can play with anybody in the nation, and if they can go on a run where they don't have to get bench play, they may be able to win some games, but that doesn't happen against Houston. Their defense, you're going to see your bench have to rotate in and out just to be around. So I'm going to take. I'm liking these large spreads today. I'm going to take. I'm going to take Houston -8, and I'm going to take the under.
Dad, what do you think?
Be one of the most interesting games on the card because Houston got into the Big 12, and their first conference play game, as you guys remember, was at Kansas, and they had to go to Kansas, and it was like, welcome to the Big 12, playing in front of, playing on a hostile environment with 19,000 screaming fans there on a team that doesn't lose at home, and they got blown out. Kansas blew them out. And it was like, welcome to the Big 12. Hope you like it. Now they get back at home where they're very tough, and I just don't understand how Kansas, they just don't win on the road. Have you guys ever seen a team like this? It is unbelievable how better they are at home under Bill Self than on the road. It's unbelievable. I mean, you look at the stats, it's like two completely separate clubs. And so I think because of the fact that the Cougars got embarrassed in Kansas, and their coach after the game said, this is a wake-up call for us, right? This is like, we got to understand we're not playing in the AAC or whatever that conference was that they were in with Cincinnati. This is big-time basketball against big-time programs, and we got to step it up. Now they go home. They got to answer to that. Because of that, I'm going to take the Cougs -8.
I'm taking Houston minus
game.
Yeah, I'm taking Houston -8 too. Gotta love the Cougs in this spot. Thank you so much for listening to the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show here with my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, out there in Morgantown waiting for another incredible West Virginia game. I don't think that series is over. I hope not anyway. Nate Perry, senior contributor and editor, GodzillaWins.com, and Mitch Rogers, covering all the Big 12 basketball right now and doing some Pittsburgh Penguins hockey as well. We are gearing up for March Madness. Don't forget to go to Godzilla Wins. Look at our daily picks. I'm about to load up mine right now. Just all the games we talked about. Should be a lot of fun. And we will see you next week. Hey, going to be an exciting March. Don't forget to tune in next week. As always, 8 a.m. Eastern time. Up next, you're in the War Room.